Hi, and welcome to Cosmic Consciousness with Cassia. I am an intuitive ascension based astrologer, a tarot reader, a Reiki master, and an angelic healer. And I created this channel as a way to help guide people through their ascension process. So today we're going to be talking about what the ascension is and some of the symptoms that you may experience as you're going through this awakening process. I wanted to do this video just because I see a lot of people who are new to their awakening journey and they don't necessarily understand what's going on. They're having all of these crazy symptoms. And I mean, this can be especially confusing and scary in the current climate that we're experiencing right now, where we have a virus going around, we have just so much going on, right? And so much fear that we're operating under and sort of living within. And so on top of all of that, many of us are experiencing the beginning symptoms of this awakening journey, which can mimic a lot of different sicknesses. And so it can be really scary. And I want to preface this by saying I am in no way telling people that they should not see a doctor. I'm not saying if you're experiencing the things that we're going to be going over in this video today, oh, it's just the ascension, don't worry about it. If you're concerned, always see a doctor. It's always good to be medically cleared when it comes to things like this because we really don't know. There are just so many variables. So I am in no way trying to diagnose anything. I'm not trying to tell you that what you are going through is not something that needs to be addressed medically. Absolutely do that if you feel that you need to. It's very important that we take care of our bodies. Just as we take care, like this is a spiritual awakening, but we are spiritual beings in a physical body. And so it's so important to take care of that and to see the proper medical professionals when you feel that it is necessary. And so what I'm going to go over here are basically the symptoms that I listed out that I personally have experienced and that I've noticed a lot of other people experiencing as well. And so this is my perspective and my understanding and my own personal journey and the things that I've witnessed and personally gone through myself and continue to go through. So this ascension process it's kind of like a wave, right? And so we experience times where the symptoms increase. Sometimes we have new ones. Sometimes they decrease. It's ever evolving and changing. It's, like the spiral, right? Like we go into that tighter part and then we come out and then we go in and then we come out. And so it's a process and it's going to continue to constantly fluctuate. I definitely recommend energy healing sessions as a way to help ease some of these symptoms and make it more bearable. I offer those. They are listed in the description of my services. The Bell Vespita is a type of angelic healing that was gifted to humanity to help aid us in this ascension process. So it can be really, really helpful as we're going through these things, as can the other services that I offer. So please check those out and reach out if you are in need of help. But I'm hoping that this video is just going to kind of ease a little bit of that confusion and maybe that anxiety. I think for a lot of people that like what happens. So when people tell me that they're having these symptoms, I always say, if they are really intense and they're really worrisome, go get checked out by a doctor. And when they do that and then they come back and there's really no explanation for what's going on, that's when we can really start to speculate like it's quite possible that this is. And it's sort of like, when you're going through this ascension process because you can feel it in your spirit. And so we're going to get into some of those things as well. But like I said, the healing techniques can absolutely help with that. And I want to clarify as well, when I'm talking about the ascension, what I'm talking about is the massive spiritual awakening that's going on the planet. Kayla and I, on my sister channel, Intuitive Insights with Kayla and Cassia, we refer to it as the Great Remembrance. Right? We are remembering who we truly are and stepping back into that. We're stepping back into our full spiritual potential, the full potential and expression of our souls in these physical bodies, which many argue and I resonate with as something that hasn't really been done before. This is like the great experiment, right? So we live in a third dimensional reality. That's the reality that we incarnated here to experience because it offers a complete forgetting of everything about who we are, right? It gives us complete free will, and we have the choice to accept what we see as at face value or to once again seek out that relationship with spirit, that relationship with God, source, whatever you want to call that original energy from which everything emanates, right? And of which everything is a part of. And so we get the choice to, we forget that completely. We forget who we are. And we can only have the experience that we have down here because we don't remember that. And so now we're in this process where we are remembering it. The earth is shifting from a third dimensional planet into a fifth dimensional planet. Many would argue, and I resonate with that right now, that a lot of us are existing within the fourth dimension of consciousness right now. As we're kind of, and it's sort of that spiral, right? It's like sometimes we move back into that third dimensional consciousness and then back into that fourth. And then sometimes we reach that fifth dimensional consciousness, which is the consciousness of unconditional love, right? And so it's just this constant spiraling, but the earth has ascended into that fifth dimensional energy. And so she's bringing all of us with her. And so this is the experience that we're having. And I believe that part of the reason that Gaia, which is what many of us refer to as the earth, one of the reasons that Gaia is doing this is to save herself from destruction. In this third dimensional consciousness where we're cut off from the truth of who we are, where we're operating under this illusion of separation and the fear and the anxiety that produces, we become rather destructive, right? And so we've brought the earth to a point where it has to ascend into another dimension in order to heal itself. And so that's what she's doing. And this is an opportunity for us to ascend and to rise with her. And so many of us will, and we are. And that's what this process of ascension is this process of our light bodies are changing and adapting. Our physical bodies are changing and adapting with that. We're bringing more of our soul essence into our bodies. Our consciousness is expanding, right? Our abilities and capabilities are expanding. We're unlocking all of that junk DNA that scientists like to term it because they don't understand what it is. All of our full potential is being activated. And so part of this process is this purging process that we see happening on the earth right now, as where all of the shadow aspects of ourselves are coming up to the surface, right? All of our wounds, all of our traumas, both collectively and individually, are coming to the surface to be healed. All of the heavier vibrational energies that are not a match to this fifth dimensional energy are being purged from our systems, are being purged from Gaia, from the earth. And so we see that as chaos erupting all around us, right? But it's not actually chaos. It's this perfectly orchestrated process of releasing all that does not serve and all that is not a match for the vibration that we're moving into. And so that actually brings me to the last thing that I had on my list, which is the dark night of the soul. So the dark night of the soul is an experience that a lot of us have when we first begin our awakening journey. And there's actually a great video that Kayla and I did on this on our sister channel. And so I think what I'm going to do is post the link for that in the description box below if you guys want to watch that video, where we go into more depth about what that experience can look like, right? But it's this process where a lot of times we feel really lost. We're suddenly questioning everything about our life choices, about our life path, about who we are, the things that we believe, just this sense of depression and darkness and angst almost sometimes, and loneliness, emptiness, as all of this energy, these energies are coming up to be released because we don't resonate with them any longer. And so that can be one of the key things that we experience during this initial stage of our awakening process. And as we go, because it's that spiral, right? So as we go deeper into this awakening journey, that we continue to have dark nights of the soul. And they get a little bit, at least in my experience, a little bit less intense every time we go through them, but it's just us shedding another layer of our skin. You know, like the snake shedding that skin. The snake continues to shed its skin. That process is never over. It's constantly being reborn. And so are we. And so depression, anxiety, just emotions welling up out of nowhere that we can't explain is another symptom of this process. And the major one that I've noticed in my personal life that I deal with a lot is anxiety. And so the anxiety is also a symptom of our third eye awakening. So what we're doing is all of our chakras, our main 7 chakras, and the chakras beyond that, right? As the main 7 chakras cleanse and clear and purge and fully activate, then they activate more of our chakra system. But we're going to stick with those for right now. And so those are opening and activating, and they're activating always at a deeper and deeper level. So part of the third eye of activation in particular is increased anxiety. And I've been noticing this a lot. I've noticed so many people on my social media posting about it, and my heart goes out to them because I know. I mean, I've experienced literal panic attacks. There have been days where I almost couldn't function because I had so much anxiety. And a lot of that, I believe, some of that is my own. Some of that is the collective anxiety. And so, one thing that has been really key for me is asking my guides to put up an impenetrable shield around my aura. And so this helps to sort of block out all of those extra energies so that I'm just sitting in my own energy. And that can be really, really helpful. But some of that as well is just with that third eye awakening and opening. There's not much that I can do about that except go through it. Continue to remember to breathe, to drink tea. Tea has been really helpful for me. Like my roommate Jamie makes me peppermint tea, and it really helps to soothe me and calm me. You know, having those people that you can reach out to that can be there to sort of ground you and bring you back. That has been really helpful for me. But it's just, yeah, that's one of those things that we go through. All of those different emotions, we're picking up on those from ourselves. We're purging those out of ourselves and the whole collective. If we're not shielding our energy, we're picking up on that as well. So that can feel extremely intense. And once again, I'm going to keep saying it throughout this video. Energy healing can help with that. So please reach out if you are struggling with any of these things. And of course, reach out. This is not like, oh, I'm experiencing extreme depression because I'm awakening, so I'm just going to sit in it because you got to feel it to heal it, right? No, sometimes we need extra support and extra help. So if you need to reach out to professionals, absolutely do that. If you have people in your circle that you can reach out to, absolutely do that. If you want to avail yourself of the services that I or many of these other people on YouTube and in your community probably offer, like, definitely do that. Like, really be honest with yourselves about what you need, and don't feel bad about needing something and place judgment upon yourself for maybe needing some extra help right now. We're going through a lot, and it's really overwhelming, and sometimes it's a lot more than we can handle on our own. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, was to provide people with a space where people could talk with each other, where they can watch these videos, right, and learn some things and know that you're not alone. You are absolutely not alone, but you can feel very alone during this process sometimes. This is another symptom or another thing that we notice as we go through the awakening process is people, places, jobs, all of these things slowly start to fall away. As what's happening is, as our vibration is rising, everything that's not a match to our vibration is leaving, right? So we have friendships and relationships that are ending. We're realizing that we just don't vibe with and resonate with the people that we used to. And sometimes they just don't resonate and vibe with us. Like, something about how we're changing and who we're becoming doesn't sit right with them. And so they just, sometimes it's dramatic and sometimes it's just like a gentle falling away. And so the trick is to allow that to happen and to know that part of this awakening journey involves us going within, right? And really getting to know ourselves, getting to know our own energy. And so there are some parts of this that can feel a little bit lonely, which is why these online communities really help. And what we're also doing is making space to call in those who are, those experiences, those people, those jobs, those places, whatever it is that is a fit for us vibrationally. And we may feel ourselves being called to places that we've never been before. We may feel ourselves being drawn to different locations. We may feel ourselves being drawn to different spiritual disciplines, different things. Like, all of a sudden I want to play with crystals, right? And I've never been into that before. I thought that people that played with crystals were kind of, what is the term they like to use, like woo-woo or something? But all of a sudden here I am being drawn to pick them up, or I'm at the beach picking up stones, and I'm like feeling the vibrations of them. Like, we become more sensitive to energy and to vibration. And this can also be why we experience some anxiety and different things like this, because we're picking up on other people's energies if we don't know how to shield ourselves from that. And we're also we're picking up on all those energies. Sorry, I got distracted because I wanted to say again, like, the easiest way that I felt to shield my energy is to just ask my guides to do it for me. They're really, really good at that. Your angels and your guides are just sitting back waiting for you to ask them. They cannot intervene or assist you unless you ask them for help. Once you ask them for help, they are absolutely able to do that as long as you are willing to accept that help, right? So that's the easiest way for me. So I definitely encourage you guys to do that. But yeah, we're picking up on energy. We're picking up on vibration. We're noticing the way that things have energies. We're becoming more sensitive. And this isn't just to people's vibrations or the vibrations of places, right? This is also like sensitive to sound, sensitive to light. Our taste is changing. Our smell is changing. All of our physical senses are becoming more intense. I have this funny thing that happens. So I have sinus issues, right? I've had that my entire life. So I don't smell very much. But all of a sudden, lately, out of nowhere, I start being able to smell. And because I don't smell a whole lot, I just randomly proclaim to my friends, like, what is that smell? And a lot of times it's something totally normal. It's just I don't understand it because I haven't experienced it before. Like, typically, something has to smell pretty pungent in order for me to pick up on it. But now, just randomly, that gets activated. And it's just like a whole new world of wonder to me because it's not something that I'm used to experiencing. So all of these different things may start happening to you. And so it can, in a way, like spending more time at home throughout this whole, everything that we've been going through with COVID and all of that is actually kind of helpful, because it can be overwhelming to be out around too many people or too many sensations, too much noises sometimes. Like sometimes we do just we're like the caterpillar, right, that crawls into the cocoon. Like a lot of us are in that process of being in that cocoon right now. That internal, it's like the hermit card in the tarot deck, right? That internal journey and sort of going within, and that whole process. So we may be being drawn to spend more time alone. We may be being drawn to spend more time in meditation, more time in nature. And wherever your body is calling you, whatever your body's calling you to do, it's doing that because that's what's going to be healing for you. Another thing that's changing is our eating habits. We may all of a sudden become intolerant to different foods, develop food allergies, develop environmental allergies as well if we didn't have those before. We may all of a sudden just feel like we don't want to eat a certain food anymore or be drawn to eat a certain food. It's like all of those things are just little ways that your body and your soul is telling you will be helpful to you to help assist your healing process. We need a lot of rest during this process. Tiredness and fatigue is a huge symptom of the ascension process. Sometimes I have to take almost entire days to just rest because that's what my body needs, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that right now if I need to. It's like we're integrating and assimilating all of this energy, and we're changing and we're adapting, and like we can be on overdrive a little bit. Other things that can really help with that are acupuncture is great for that. I see a chiropractor because my physical body is like contorting and getting super stressed all the time. And so he helps to open up that flow of energy for me. I mean, besides energy healing, there are all kinds of different things. Yoga, anything that moves the body. Like sometimes we just need to get that energy flowing and help to release that energy through movement. So movement, if you're being drawn to that, like definitely do that. Whatever it is that you are being drawn to, that's what your body and your soul is telling you is going to assist you and help you the most. And so, yeah, we have a whole slew of physical symptoms, and it can be so different for everyone. Headaches, we have digestive issues going on. We have general body changes, right? Like some people, they're even noticing like the consistency of their hair or their nails is becoming different. Their pigmentation and coloring is slightly changing. Weight gain, weight loss. It's that sometimes like we can't really explain because we're not eating any differently or doing anything any differently. It can be things like skin rashes. I had a really strange rash for a little while, about a year ago or so, that just sort of erupted everywhere, and it was similar to eczema, but it was just like it was very bizarre, and I had these strange discolored patches on my skin that just sort of showed up. And yeah, it's all kinds of strange things can happen as far as that goes. Flu-like symptoms. A lot of people experience those. They experience nausea, the tiredness, the headaches, the hot flashes. I experience hot flashes, and I mean, I've been experiencing those for many, many years. Funnily enough, I always figured it was just a hormonal imbalance, but it gets really intense sometimes now. And it's just like that flush of energy sometimes. I have to be careful. Like that's another thing I do want to sort of caution people about. Some people, when they start to realize what's happening to them, get really gung-ho and they just want to supercharge their ascension process as fast as they possibly can. And you want to be careful with that. This is really a process that we want to allow to unfold naturally. Because sometimes if we push ourselves to try to integrate and assimilate these energies too quickly and to elevate our vibration too fast and our physical body can't keep up, right? Like that's what, when we talk about these flu-like symptoms and stuff, they nickname it the Ascension flu. That's what that is. It's our body struggling to keep up. And so we can make ourselves really uncomfortable doing that. And I have done that in the past. You know, I take a monatomic gold as a supplement, which can aid in the ascension process. But I had to slow down how much I was taking. I don't take it every single day, because when I was taking it a lot, it was a little bit too intense for me. And it felt almost like my body was cooking from the inside out, because this ascension process can be so intense for me. And I had to slow that. I had to listen to my body. I had to listen to my own intuition. So it's really about doing that and knowing that like you are going to ascend. We all are. If we are on this journey and we are willing to do the work, we're willing to work through all the trauma, we're willing to look at those wounds and let them go, to release the things that are asking to be released, to really meet the person that we're becoming, like we will ascend. Like it's not a race. So just allow your body to set the pace for you. Allow your soul to set the pace for you. That's the most important thing I can say when it comes to all of that. But yeah, body aches, cramping. Sometimes parts of my body will just twitch uncontrollably. Sometimes I feel my body vibrating, or I feel sensations of hot and cold, especially in my hands, which is similar to like when I do energy work, but it can happen at any time. This sort of like tingling sensation or like a static sensation, especially I feel it a lot around my face, like around my nose and stuff, sometimes around my third eye, or like a tingling sensation on the top of my crown. And so any of those different things you could be feeling and experiencing. The scariest one for a lot of people, I think, that I notice at the beginning of the ascension process for a lot of people is heart palpitations. As the heart chakra is activating, as the heart chakra activates, as far as the information and the knowledge that I've been given, the heart activation of the heart chakra is what really sets in motion the cleansing and clearing of all the chakras, because it is the bridge that connects the upper and the lower chakras. The heart is the gateway, the key to the kingdom, and the kingdom is our joy. And that joy is what leads us into that fifth dimension, that joy, that unconditional love, all of that. So the heart center is the key. And so when this activates, sometimes we can feel pressure in our chest. We can feel tightness in our chest. We can feel our heart can palpitate. It can feel like it's beating really, really fast. And then that, of course, for me personally, always triggers my anxiety. Whenever my heart rate gets up too much, it makes me really anxious. Or is the anxiety making my heart? Who knows? But yeah, so the stuff with the heart and the chest, right? And so I know a lot of people who went to the hospital because of this, and they got checked out. They had all these tests run, and they were told that they were totally fine. And they were just like, well, what the hell is going on? So it's only at that point that I mentioned that they may be ascending. And I think that this is important for people to take note of, because we never want to tell anyone who's experiencing chest pain or palpitations not to go to the hospital. That's important, because it could be something very serious. So we always want to encourage people to do that. But afterwards, once they've been medically cleared, I then offer this to them as a possibility, because it is absolutely one of those first things that seems to happen to a lot of people, along with the emotional disturbances, right? The mood disturbances, the anxiety, the anger and the depression and all that stuff coming up, right? Is the flu-like symptoms and the heart palpitations. And then we start getting into the really fun stuff. I want to see if there's anything else physically that I wanted to bring up for you guys. So sleep disturbances and changes. I think we talked about that with the tiredness and the fatigue. We may, all of a sudden, we were night owls and we start waking up earlier in the morning and wanting to go to bed earlier. Some of us may want to sleep all day. Some of us may discover that we have way more energy than we ever had before. Like I said, this can vary very drastically from person to person, and we can experience one thing at one point in our ascension and then something else later on. So we never know exactly how it's going to go or what we're going to experience. It's a wide range of different ways that we experience this. We can experience, I said the headaches, sometimes I've noticed like shooting ear pain or like earaches. I've noticed that with quite a few people as well as myself, and the ringing in the ears. So this is something that is so funny to me because I see so many posts on Facebook lately of people being like, how do you cure tinnitus? Everyone thinks they have tinnitus because all of a sudden their ears are ringing. And so, I mean, maybe some people do, but I know for me, this was also one of the first symptoms that I experienced. And I actually began to experience it after my first Belvespita healing, which is the angelic healing that I offer. When I received my first healing, I started hearing energy. And that's really what the ringing is we're hearing energy. And so it's interesting to kind of pay attention to what's going on when that's happening. It's like when the vibrational tones of the energy change, the pitch of the ringing changes. And sometimes if something important is being discussed, I'll hear the ringing in my ears. When the vibration raises, I'll hear the ringing. The whole time I'm doing these videos for you guys, my ears are ringing. And they get louder when something important, really important is being discussed, or when the energy is really moving through me and channeling to you guys, right? So it's sort of a barometer that helps me to understand what's going on. A lot of people also say that it's your angels and your guides talking to you. It's your soul talking to you. And I really resonate with that. And I think that it's really interesting. I only experienced this once, actually on the 7/7 portal. It was really interesting. I just had this ridiculous surge of this electric energy just pouring into me. And it was there were moments where I felt like my whole entire physical body wanted to dissolve completely. It was really intense and overwhelming. But while this was going on, I heard the ringing. And this time it was like I could distinguish tones to it and harmonics that almost sounded like music. And I've heard people comment and talk about this, how the ringing eventually shifts to them. And it's like some sort of weird angelic music that they're hearing, which is really cool. And so that may be something that happens as this develops. But you're receiving communication. You're receiving, sometimes when we receive downloads, which is like light information, light codes, when we receive this information, and when the beings of light and our angels and our guides are working on us, when these planetary energies, these different things are like sending this light information to us, sometimes we hear that ringing as well. It's sort of like new programming is being downloaded in us. So there's a whole different variety of reasons that we hear this ringing and different things that it can represent. And just pay attention to it and what you're feeling, experiencing, and thinking or talking about when it's going on for you. And it can be really interesting to start understanding how that's working with you. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Yeah, so visual disturbances as well. And so this can be a lot of different things. And I say disturbances, but a lot of times it's pretty cool. So a lot of people, I just found out recently, there was actually one of our viewers on Intuitive Insights pointed out the terminology, which I had never heard before. But after he said it, I saw it everywhere. So thank you, Jason, for that, is snow. And so it's sort of like, I always just assumed that it was me seeing the atoms and the particles in the air that make up reality, the fabric of reality, right? Like the everything is matter, right? Everything is energy. It just vibrates at different speeds. So the slower it vibrates, the more solid it becomes, like this table. And the faster it vibrates, the less solid it becomes. So when it's vibrating at this, and so you can see this process as we're beginning to feel lighter. That process I was talking about of feeling like my body almost wanted to dissolve. As our vibration raises, the matter in our own bodies is speeding up, and so we are getting lighter, right? That's what they mean, like the term ascending, right? And so yeah, but we have this, everything is made of energy. So just because we can't see it doesn't mean that like the same energy isn't, like I'm waving my hand through it right now. It's just less material, and because it's vibrating faster. And so we begin to see that. We begin to see the little dots. It almost looks like static on a television sometimes. Sometimes it looks like things are breathing, right? Like I see the walls kind of breathe sometimes. It reminds me of anyone who's had like a psychedelic experience before. It reminds me of that kind of thing, but without the psychedelics. It's like light looks different. We can see rainbows, or everything just has a more fluid, less solid look and feel to it. And so this can look like a bunch of different things. But, for some people, maybe their vision becomes more clear. Everything has more detail. yeah, people may start seeing auras, right? You may start seeing the auras of light around objects, around people, people's light bodies, animals, trees, everything has a light body, right? That has a consciousness. And so all of that different stuff, which can be really, really interesting if we allow it to be. And if it happens at the right time, if it happens at the wrong time, it can be really stressful. You know, when I was still, before COVID, when I was working at my day job, day night, my job that was my primary income at that time, it was really overwhelming if I was getting ready for work and then I got hit by this slew of Ascension symptoms and I felt like my body wanted to dissolve and everything was looking kind of funny, and I just had to sit there and breathe and be like, fuck, I hope I'm going to be able to pull it together by the time I go in there. You know, like if it's at an inopportune time, it's not that great. If we have the time to allow the process, and it happens at those moments when we are a little more prepared to just sit down and go along for the ride, it can be pretty cool. And so another thing that I'm being asked to bring up is, if you are really struggling, also ask your guides and your angels for help. Ask them to sort of slow down the process for you and allow your physical body to catch up, and ask them what you can do to facilitate that process and just see what comes through. So as we're ascending, we're reclaiming more of our spiritual power, right? We're reclaiming more of our soul. We're merging with our soul essence. We're becoming more of what we truly are, as we're becoming less of what we're not, right? And so our psychic abilities are starting to come out more, right? Like the 5 senses that we talked about are being really stimulated, but our 6th sense is coming online as well. And so we've always identified this as like our intuition, right? Like that little voice inside that tells us who's on the telephone. I mean, now we have caller ID, we all have cell phones, but like back in the day, right? Before we answer, or like those little things we know when somebody's thinking about us, which we call telepathy, right? We dream about people. We're getting very vivid dreams, some of us. All of this different stuff as our psychic abilities come online, and as our gifts, like our soul gifts, we're reclaiming our soul gifts. We're reclaiming our soul. We're stepping more into our soul. And so these gifts are starting to come, and we're starting to learn how to play with them. And those can be different things, but a lot of the clair senses are being developed. So clairaudience, clairsentience, that automatic knowing, like you just know things and you don't know how you know, but you know. That kind of thing, right? And so when my guides are communicating with me, ways that I know that that's happening is I hear the ringing, but I also just have this knowledge that pops into my mind that I know didn't come from me. And so I know that that came from them. And sometimes when I speak to them, it's like, it's not the way that they communicate telepathically with me is not through words, it's through impressions. So like I had this one beautiful session with my angels where I was asking them questions and I was just getting these impressions of the answers. And so we start really delving into all of that sort of stuff and exploring that. And it starts to feel really familiar. We're being drawn to different books, maybe different spiritual teachers, different things that we're developing an interest in. And so those are the things that our soul is calling us to develop more so that we can develop and reclaim these soul gifts. So it's really important to listen to those and like where you're being called to look, the information that's presenting itself to you. You can ask for more guidance, and you may all of a sudden have somebody who offers you a book to read that answers the questions that you had, right? These are also what we call synchronicities. Those are going to start happening more and more. There's so many ways that spirit can answer us when we start asking and we start developing that co-creative relationship with it, right? And so yeah, just playing with that, we may see repeating number sequences. Those can be messages from our angels and our guides. Those can also be light codes. I read that once and that resonated with me, and I found that really interesting that like we are receiving light codes oftentimes when we see these repeating sequences of numbers. And that makes sense because that's what happens when we have these portals. It's these, and when we talk about light codes, what we're talking about is information. Light is information. And information, we have to, in order for us to ascend and evolve, we have to receive that information and then begin to integrate it. And part of how we integrate that is through the Christ consciousness, the love consciousness, right? So yeah, we're seeing these repeating number sequences, these conversations where we ask a question and then all of a sudden we start having a conversation with somebody that answers that question. We start being given a book, a video pops up on YouTube that answers that question. Like however that happens, and then we see that even if we haven't gotten to the point yet where our guides are communicating with us telepathically or through these other means, like they are still communicating with us and answering those questions in whatever way it is that is appropriate for us and helpful for us at this time. So that's really cool. And we're learning how to be our own guide and connect into our own soul's guidance and really just develop that more, which is absolutely, I know I say this all the time, it's absolutely beautiful. So yes, we covered all of that. Brain fog and memory loss, another symptom that a lot of people experience. We start forgetting things. I mean, I've done this my whole life, so I can't say that's an Ascension symptom. I can say it happens more sometimes, or it's almost like things will happen, or I'll completely forget that things happened, or I'll remember something a different way than somebody else remembers it that just happened, which is really interesting. And I think that this is also a symptom of timeline jumps. We're experiencing timeline jumps. Which means that we're shifting into a more optimal timeline, and we're shifting around quite a bit. And so I'm probably going to do a video talking about how to shift your timeline, but I'll also reference for you guys a video that Kayla and I did on Intuitive Insights that talks about timelines and what those are if you guys are confused. But it's basically another version of reality that we slip into. And so time itself is becoming more fluid, right? Like time is a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional construct and concept. And as we move into the 5th dimension, time is not linear, right? And so we're seeing examples of this where we looked at the clock and we know more than 3 minutes has gone by, but it says only 3 minutes has gone by. Or the opposite is true, and it says 3 hours has gone by, and we're like, there's no fucking way, it's just been 3 hours. It's like it's speeding up and slowing down, and we're kind of shifting in and out, and sometimes we're just really confused. It feels like because our brain is processing so much, and it's like a computer being hardwired and rebooted constantly, it gets really tired. And so we experience this fog sometimes. We experience this confusion. Another interesting thing that I've learned that I resonate with as far as the memory goes is we're moving into this, like we talked about, like our claircognizance and sentience, right? And how we move into the state of knowing. And so because we're moving into a state where we're not functioning based on memory anymore, we're functioning based on unknowing. And so memory is kind of being phased out. It's not a thing like our brain has to catalog everything and sift through it to find the memory of things, because we just automatically have that knowingness now, which is really cool, but it can be a bit disconcerting as we're going through that process. But that's really beautiful, because that means all the stuff that our brain programmed into its memory banks, all of those traumas, all of those old patterns and those ways of doing things that we're clearing out right now. That's why we're clearing those out right now, because all of that old programming isn't necessary, and it's not going to be dictating the way that we live our lives, right? When we talk about the subconscious programming that we have to sort of work through if we want to really heal ourselves and change our lives, because it's all sort of laid out for us. And even if we want to be different or think differently or behave differently, like it takes a while to rewrite that programming. All that programming is going to be gone. We don't need that anymore. It's not necessary. It's not required as we move into the 5th dimension. And so we can see with these lapses in memory, that process of shifting more from that memory to that knowing. And then we have, we talked about that. Increased instances of deja vu. When you feel like you've had the same conversation before, or what's happening has happened before. And yes, I just honestly, that just came to me as I was writing this. So I think that that's not necessarily, I've had a lot of deja vu my entire life, but this may be something that people are experiencing more. And so there's lots of different theories about what deja vu is. I'm not going to go into that. I don't think it's really important for this. It's just people may be experiencing it more, and it may have something to do with the jumping and hopping of timelines that we're experiencing. And then, changes in personality. Changes in personality and loss of interest in things that you used to that you used to do. Like we are unbecoming everything that we're not, and we're becoming everything that we truly are. And so we are changing. Our likes are changing, our dislikes are changing, the kind of people we want to be around, like that's changing, the things that we want to do, the career that we want to have. We're almost like a stranger to ourselves sometimes. And like it can be something as simple as like, wow, I always hated ketchup, and now like I really am drawn to try it and I love it. Or I never used to read books like this, but now all of a sudden I'm really interested in that. It's all of these little quirks, and maybe we're developing these new little quirks. And that can happen in fun ways, that can also happen in kind of not fun ways, as all of a sudden we're developing these phobias and these little tics that we never used to have before. And so that, from my perception, is part of, as we're integrating these other pieces, this soul retrieval process, right? We're integrating more of our soul. We're taking on some of that stuff because we're healing that. And so those little quirks can come up. The phobias, that's been a bit frustrating for me. In my own personal life, it's manifested as a lot of OCD and more anxiety, but it's all good because we're just working through all of this stuff, and it means that I'm integrating more of myself, and I absolutely love that. And I'm willing to do and work through whatever I need to work through in order to reclaim more of my soul and to be more of who I really am. But yeah, so those different things can happen. We're becoming a different person. We're changing, we're evolving, we're growing. This happens whenever we grow and change. And so it's becoming really pronounced right now because we are shifting so dramatically. And we're in this place where we're not, like, we can't really tolerate things that don't feel good to our soul anymore. Like if something doesn't feel fulfilling, if something feels empty, it's just, like where before we might have been able to just be like, whatever, but like I can deal with this, or I can work with this, or it's not that bad. Now we're unable to tolerate that anymore. If we have jobs that are really unfulfilling, that we're really miserable at, that are really draining our energy, all of a sudden it's like the thought of being there is too much for us to bear. It's just all these different things and all these different ways where we're realizing like I need to do we are starting to hear the calls of our soul. Those calls are getting louder, and we're being drawn to do what our soul is calling us to do. And then another thing that's happening for a lot of people is that things are happening faster. Things are manifesting faster. Like we talk about things or we think about things, and they're coming into our reality even more quickly than they had before. And this is a symptom of a whole lot of different things. Us claiming more of our spiritual power, us being in a more powerful vibrational resonance that's drawing those things in. The fact that timelines are shifting and the whole concept of time is changing. We're moving into this dimension where energy does shift much more quickly, right? And so that's another interesting thing that came to me as I was writing this, that some people may be experiencing. That's pretty cool. And I've definitely experienced that gaining momentum over the past however many years. And so I think that is a pretty good sort of overview of the ascension process and some of the symptoms and the things that you guys may be experiencing. Oh, I just looked down and I forgot to mention also, like, I wrote down glitches in the matrix. So that's a fun one. So that can be anything, like just little things where all of a sudden, like you were just taking a glance around and you noticed that a car was black. And then you look back and you're like, wait a minute, that car's red now. That wasn't red before. And you know for a fact. So it's just like this reality that's sort of like a simulation that we're in, right? That feels very real. All of a sudden we're seeing these instances where we're realizing that not everything is maybe what we thought it was or how we thought it was. And so that can be, it's sort of like in a movie where all of a sudden they make a mistake with the set and you're like, wait a minute. Or like one of the extras all of a sudden is in a place that they shouldn't be. And you're like, wait, they were over there. Just like fun, interesting stuff like that. So if you guys have any other, those of you on this journey, have any other symptoms that you've experienced or any fun, interesting things like that, definitely leave a comment down below talking about that. I'd love to hear your different experiences with all of this stuff. As I mentioned, I offer energy healing services. I offer personal readings. I offer Ascension astrology readings where we look at your the transiting planets in your chart and how those are impacting your ascension process right now. So many different things that I offer that can be so beneficial. So reach out if you need help with any of those things. If you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't yet and you want to catch more videos. I do videos on a lot of astrological energy ascension stuff, but all kinds of different topics as well. I do readings. Like, this channel is going to be super, super fun, and I'm really excited about it. So definitely subscribe if you want to be a part of all of that, and hit the bell with the squigglies so you get the notifications. If you want to donate to my channel and just help support me putting out this free content, which I absolutely, absolutely love to do, the link for that is down below as well. As I said, the link for Intuitive Insights and a couple of those videos that I mentioned will be in the box below as well. And yeah, I appreciate every single one of you, and I am so, so happy to be on this beautiful ascension journey with you. If you have any questions, please, like I said, feel free to reach out. And until we meet again, I hope you all have a lovely night.